I've talked a lot about the self in my videos, and I've even said that it's an illusion, or that it doesn't exist. But I've never actually defined what I mean when I say the self. So I want to do that in this video so that we have a foundation of understanding. And then when I talk about the self in future videos, you know what I'm saying. Now, in very simple terms, when we say the self, this is everything that you say when you describe yourself, or I. So it's your personality, your likes and dislikes, your thoughts, your experiences, your history, and sometimes the body. Now, the body is kind of an interesting thing when connecting with the self. Usually, the body is seen as kind of a possession, where it's my hand, my body. Even I might say, I have short hair. I have green eyes. Now, the one time or situation that it seems that we become the body, and the body is I, is when we're attacked. So if someone punches you in the shoulder, you punched me. Now, I want to continue by asking a question. Is there only one self? Now, that question might be strange, or seem strange, but if we go into the topic, we see that it actually is strange. A strange topic. So can you think of any instances where the self splits? Or very simply, when we talk to ourselves. We separate ourselves into the speaker and the listener. Now you can see how crazy this is when someone is doing it out loud. So this guy is talking to himself. We say, well, he's crazy.
No, we have time. We do, we have time.
But yet, we're doing it all the time in our mind. But of course, we think of it, that's normal. Because everyone does that. But we are splitting into two. And I notice myself where sometimes I'm more speaker or more listener, depending on the topic. But it's not like there is a speaker and no listener, or there's only a listener. There is both there. Another time we split is when we judge ourselves. Now, this can be done in a positive way. So we praise ourselves. But of course, it's usually in a negative way where we say we're maybe not good enough.
God, you're such a fucking loser. You make me so fucking sick.
Another split we have is when we judge the judge. So maybe we say how hard we are on ourselves.
Try not to be too hard on myself.
Or we could even say how we're not hard enough on ourselves. Now, there could be actually many more iterations of this, where the self splits even more.
I've written myself into my screenplay. That's kind of weird, huh?
So I can talk to myself about the judge. Okay, so make another one. I can think about the times when I have a conversation about the judge about myself.
Did you just refer to yourself in the fourth person?
And just go on and on, splitting myself more and more. Okay, so you can see there are these, but you say, well, all right, but there's only I. And like I said earlier, it always feels like it's just I. It's not like I'm having a conversation with someone else. Okay, so is there one self? Now this seems obvious, but, well, let's look into it. So first, does the self change? Do you change? I would say most people would be, yeah, of course. You think about how you were when you were a kid. Your body has changed. Your personality has changed. You've changed your likes and dislikes. So of course. Well, I've talked about this in my video, Changing the Self, how a singular thing can't change. So we go from the outside. We look at something changing. If it is only one thing, can it actually change? So if I look at this and say this is just one thing. So has the cup changed? Is this still the cup? Well, we see there has to be something remaining of the cup to say that it actually changed, which would mean it's not one thing. How about we look at from the inside? So I change. Well, if I'm only one thing and I change, I stop existing. Because whatever is after, it's not me. Now you say, well, it is me. Well, then you had something that changed and you had that I that continued. Okay, well, whatever changed was not the I, and it never actually was one thing, because it was that something that changed and the I. So again, from the inside, one thing cannot change. Okay, so what's going on? The self can be many and also not many, or it can be one but not one. Well, once again, we see paradox. I think it's important that we go further to define and separate out what is meant by the self. And so we see about how the self can change. Personality, preferences. I mean, we see that all the time. What I was like when I was a kid and how I am now is different. Okay, but do you feel the I has changed? So do you feel a different I from when you were a small child to now? Okay, so now we can separate out those, then the I and the self. Now the self is that which changes. So that's the preferences, the thoughts, the feelings. But the I doesn't change. Now any attribute I can give to the I is something that is experienced by the I. So I say it is, let's say, friendly, or you think about some personality trait that's deep down. Okay, I'm a hard worker. Okay, well, I can stop being a hard worker, and it's still I. I can change all of these things, but the I is still the same I. Anything that we can think of can change and is experienced by the I. Any attribute you can think of is experienced by the I. Now, it seems that the I is open to everything. And this connects to what I talked about, or what we experienced in the video Between Sight and Touch, where I talked about the hands. And we have the illusion where the fingers look short or long, and how the I is okay. It accepts everything. It's open to everything. So, oh, my fingers are short? Okay. My fingers are long? Okay. So it seems that in the I, there's an openness that allows the self to play as many or as one. Okay. So is the I one? Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Now, again, in my video, Changing the Self, I said how when we look at the attributes of the I, all those attributes are of the self, because those are all experienced by I. So when I talk about anything with personality, that comes and goes, and it's experienced by I. The body can change. I can lose an arm or a leg, but it's still I. I can change my history. I can forget very important things that happened to me when I was younger, but it's still I, the same I. If there are no attributes that I can find, then there's nothing. There's nothing there to define it as something. So I'd say there is nothing. Well, if I'm nothing, if the I that is nothing, the I is nothing, is that different than your I that is nothing? Is my nothing different than your nothing? Again, that doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to define difference of nothing. So I can't say I'm actually one, because there's nothing there to say is one. But there's another way to look at this. Now, there was an interview on the podcast Buddha at the Gas Pump with Greg Good. And this was a few years ago. And he was talking about he was looking at arising and saying that there's only one arising, the present moment. But he realized that if there is only one, there can't be one. Now, this seems a little strange. So anything that we can think of as one, we can think of as a possibility of there being more than one. So if I think if there's only one Eiffel Tower, well, there can be two. When we think of the concept of one, that implies not one. Now, that can be zero, that can be many. When we look at something that can only be one, and so if I ask, how many realities are there? Is there one reality? Well, first you'd say, well, there can't be many realities. Now, you could say I have an idea of a multiverse. Well, but all of those multiverses are reality. There's nothing outside of reality. You can't have more than one reality. So can you have one reality? Well, one doesn't actually make sense then, because there cannot be two. But think of it like this. Can you have an experience of non-reality? No, any experiences of reality. There cannot be any experience of not reality. So there's only reality. So it's not actually one thing. Well, let's continue. Could there ever be an experience of not I? Again, that doesn't make any sense. So I isn't really one. But, of course, we've come up against this idea before. And that's why we use non-duality. It's as close as we can get. So we can say one, we can say unity, knowing that it's actually much bigger than that. Now, this can be, I think, understood logically. I know that, but maybe not really known experientially. But that's okay. This is a video just trying to lay the groundwork of understanding the self. And so in upcoming videos, we'll go more and more into what the self is. So I'd like to know what you think. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video and like to look at more of my videos, please subscribe. Until next time.